He found a nameless, hairless alien girl without shoes. When she took a bath, she broke down. The wind carried dust through the abandoned streets of Nix 9, a forgotten outpost on the edge of what was once a thriving alien metropolis. Now it stood as a testament to failed expansion, its buildings crumbling under the weight of neglect and harsh climate. This was where former Earth Special Forces operative Rain had chosen to disappear. Rain wiped sweat from his brow as he finished reinforcing the eastern wall of his modest dwelling. 6 months ago, he'd traded the regimented military life for solitude among the ruins. His powerful frame, honed by years of combat, now served more practical purposes, building, hunting, and occasionally fending off scavengers who ventured too close to his territory. Another day in paradise, and he muttered, surveying the bleak landscape. The setting sun cast long shadows across the ruins, painting everything in hues of amber and rust. He shouldered his makeshift tool belt and began the trek back home. His dwelling sat on elevated ground, offering a strategic view of the surrounding area. Old habits die hard. It wasn't much, but he'd converted an abandoned communications outpost into something resembling a home. Solar panels provided power, and he'd rigged a water collection system that made life possible in this forsaken place. As Rain approached his home, something caught his eye. Movement among the debris field to the west. He froze, hand instinctively reaching for the pulse pistol at his hip. Through the haze, he spotted a figure stumbling between the twisted metal structures. Not the usual scavenger. Too small, too desperate. Rain changed course, moving with the silent precision that had once made him legendary among his unit. As he drew closer, the figure became clearer. A humanoid alien, female judging by the form, completely hairless, with soft blue skin that seemed to absorb the dying sunlight. She wore nothing but tattered rags that barely covered her thin frame, and her bare feet left small prints in the dust. Her large indigo eyes darted around fearfully as she limped forward, one arm clutching the other. Even from a distance, Rain could see she was trembling. He deliberated for a moment. Involvement meant complication. Complication meant risk. But something in her desperate movement stirred something he thought he'd buried along with his military career. Compassion. "Damn it," he whispered to himself, then emerged from his cover. The alien girl spotted him immediately, freezing like a startled animal. Her eyes widened, reflecting a depth of fear that made Rain slow his approach. He raised his hands, palms forward. "Easy now," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "I won't hurt you." She took a step backward, her bare foot catching on debris. She stumbled but maintained her balance, eyes never leaving him. Rain stopped, keeping several meters between them. "You're injured," he observed, nodding toward her arm. "And you look like you haven't eaten in days." The alien girl remained silent, but her eyes spoke volumes. Suspicion, fear, and beneath it all, a desperate hope. "I have food." "Clean water," Rain continued, then gestured toward his dwelling. "Shelter." A gust of wind swept through the ruins, causing the girl to shiver violently. Rain slowly removed his outer jacket and held it out. "Take it, please." For several long moments, neither moved. Then, hesitantly, she took a step forward. Then another. When she was close enough, she reached out with trembling fingers and took the jacket. She wrapped it around herself, the material engulfing her small frame. "I won't hurt you," Rain repeated, softer this time. "You're safe now." At those words, tears began to stream down her blue cheeks. She didn't speak, didn't move closer, but something in her posture changed, a fractional lowering of her guard. "My place is just up there," he said, pointing. "Can you walk?" She nodded slightly. "Good. Follow me if you want. Your choice." Rain turned and began walking slowly toward his home, not looking back. He counted his steps, waiting for the sound of her following. At 15, he heard it, the soft padding of bare feet on the dusty ground. A small victory. But in this desolate place, even small victories were worth celebrating. Rain's dwelling was sparse but functional, a testament to military efficiency. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a small alcove for sleeping and a makeshift bathroom constructed by repurposing plumbing from the original outpost. "Home sweet home," he said, stepping aside to let the blue-skinned girl enter. Her indigo eyes darted around, taking in every detail, every potential exit. Rain recognized the behavior. He'd done the same countless times in unfamiliar territory. "Hungry?" he asked, moving to a storage container. He pulled out some preserved rations and a canteen of water, placing them on a small table. "It's not gourmet, but it's food." The girl approached cautiously, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. She examined the offerings, then looked at Rain with uncertainty. "Go ahead," he encouraged. "It's yours." She took a small bite, then began eating with increasing urgency. Rain watched, giving her space. When she finished, he gestured toward the bathroom. "You can clean up if you want. There's warm water." Her eyes widened at this, and she followed him to the small alcove where he'd rigged a shower system. Rain demonstrated how to operate the water controls, then stepped back. "I'll find you some clothes. Take your time." Rain rummaged through his limited wardrobe, selecting the smallest items he owned, a gray thermal shirt and drawstring pants. When he returned to the bathroom doorway, he heard it, soft sobbing from behind the partition. He hesitated, then gently called out, "Are you all right?" The sobbing paused. After a moment, he heard the water shut off. He placed the clothes just inside the doorway and retreated, giving her privacy. Minutes later, she emerged wearing his clothes, which engulfed her slender frame. Her blue skin seemed brighter now, clean of the dust and grime. Her eyes, though still wary, held less fear. "Better?" Rain asked. She nodded, then surprised him by speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft, melodic, with an accent he couldn't place. "Thank you," she said, "for your kindness." Rain nodded, oddly moved by these simple words. "You're welcome. I'm Rain." "Rain," she repeated as if testing the word. "Like water from the sky." He smiled slightly. "Something like that. Do you have a name?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not anymore." The implications of this statement hung in the air between them. Rain didn't press. Instead, he gestured to the sleeping alcove. "You can rest there. I'll take the floor." "No," she said quickly. "I cannot take your bed." "It's fine. I've slept on worse." As night fell, Rain made a makeshift bed on the floor while the girl settled into his cot. The silence between them was comfortable now, less strained. Just as Rain was drifting off, her voice came through the darkness. "Operation Midnight Sun," she said softly. "You were there." Rain's body tensed instantly, sleep forgotten. He sat up, staring toward the cot where he could just make out her silhouette. "How do you know about that?" His voice was tight, controlled. "Your arm," she replied. "The tattoo." Only Earth's 7th Tactical Response Unit has that marking. They were at Nix 9. When everything ended, Rain unconsciously touched the stylized phoenix on his bicep, the emblem of his former unit. "You were here during the operation?" "Yes." Her voice was barely audible now. "I was a translator for the Vixari Council. When your forces came, I was in the Central Communications Hub." Rain's mind raced back to that day 3 years ago. Operation Midnight Sun, the mission to neutralize a Vixari bioweapon facility allegedly hidden beneath Nix 9. The intelligence had been solid, or so they were told. The operation was swift, decisive, and devastating. "We were told it was a weapons facility," Rain said, his throat dry. "That's why we targeted the communications hub first, to prevent them from activating the weapons." "There were no weapons," she replied, her voice steady but sad. "The facility was researching a cure for the Crimson Plague. The communications hub was coordinating with medical ships." Rain felt the weight of her words like a physical blow. His unit had been praised for their efficiency, decorated for preventing a potential attack on human colonies. But if what she said was true, "Why are you here?" he asked finally. "Why return to this place?" "Where else could I go?" she replied simply. "The Vixari blamed the survivors for not preventing the attack. We became outcasts. I've been hiding in the ruins, scavenging, surviving." Rain lay back down, staring at the ceiling. The silence stretched between them, filled with the ghosts of the past. "I didn't know," he said finally. "None of us knew." "I believe you," she replied softly. "War makes victims of us all." In the darkness, Rain felt something shift inside him, a crack in the wall he'd built around his guilt and regret. Here they were, two survivors of the same tragedy, brought together by chance or fate in the very place that had shaped their destinies. "Get some rest," he said gently. "You're safe here." As sleep finally claimed him, Rain realized he hadn't felt this connected to another being since before Operation Midnight Sun. The irony wasn't lost on him, and finding a moment of peace with someone who had every reason to hate him, days passed in a rhythm that surprised Rain with its ease. The blue-skinned girl, who eventually asked him to call her Jira after a constellation he'd pointed out one night, adapted quickly to life in his shelter. She proved remarkably resourceful, showing him how to extract water from certain native plants and identifying edible fungi that grew in the shadowed crevices of the ruins. "Your people really didn't know what this place was, did they?" Jira asked one evening as they sat outside watching twin moons rise over the desolate landscape. Her voice had lost its initial timidity, though she still spoke softly. "No," Rain admitted, poking at the small cooking fire between them. "We were told it was a weapons facility. That's all we knew." "And you never questioned it?" Rain looked at her, noting how the firelight danced across her blue features. "Soldiers follow orders. Questions get people killed. Yet here you are, questioning everything." He smiled ruefully. "Too late for it to matter." "It matters to me," Jira said, her indigo eyes reflecting the flames. "Your question saved my life." Something in her gaze made Rain's pulse quicken. Over the past week, he'd found himself increasingly aware of her presence, the graceful way she moved, the musical cadence of her voice, the subtle scent that reminded him of rain-soaked earth. "Tell me about your people," he said, changing the subject. "The Vexari." "I only know what was in our briefings." Jira's expression softened. "We're an old species, older than humans by millennia. We were spacefaring when your ancestors were still discovering fire." "Yet humans have spread farther, faster," Rain observed. "Yes," she acknowledged with a small smile. "That's what fascinates us about your kind. Your intensity. Vexari plan for centuries. Humans act in moments and somehow succeed." "Not always," Rain said, thinking of Operation Midnight Sun. "More often than you realize." Jira shifted closer to him. "My people have a saying, the universe favors the bold. We say it, but humans live it." Their eyes met across the fire and something electric passed between them. Rain found himself wondering how her skin would feel beneath his fingertips, whether her lips would be warm or cool against his. As if reading his thoughts, Jira stood and moved around the fire to sit beside him. The nearness of her sent his senses into overdrive. "In Vexari culture," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "enemies who become allies share a special bond. It's called Tivin, a connection forged in the fire of conflict." "And what does this Tivin entail?" Rain asked, his voice rougher than intended. "Understanding. Forgiveness." Her hand found his in the darkness. "And sometimes something more." Rain's breath caught as her fingers intertwined with his. Her touch was cool at first, then warmed against his skin. "Jira," he began, uncertain. "I've been alone for so long," she said, her eyes searching his. "We both have." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Rain realized with sudden clarity that he'd been alone long before coming to Nix 9, alone in crowded barracks, alone on bustling transport ships, alone even among his unit. The solitude had been a choice, a wall built to protect himself from the pain of loss. But now with Jira's hand in his, that wall seemed pointless. He leaned forward, hesitant, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. Her mouth tasted faintly sweet, like the native fruits they'd gathered that morning. When they finally separated, Jira's eyes shimmered with emotion. "Your kind kisses differently than mine," she murmured, a smile playing at her lips. "Better or worse?" Rain asked, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "Different," she repeated. "But I could grow accustomed to it." They moved inside as the night air cooled, their newfound intimacy transforming the small dwelling into something that finally felt like home. In the darkness of his sleeping alcove, they explored the differences and surprising similarities between their species. finding a language beyond words to express what was growing between them. Afterward, as Jira lay nestled against his chest, her breathing soft and regular, Rain stared at the ceiling and wondered at the strange paths that had brought them together. An alien and a human, enemies by circumstance, now joined in the most primal, intimate way. "What are you thinking?" Jira asked sleepily, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin. "That the universe has a strange sense of humor," he replied, pressing his lips to her smooth head. She chuckled softly. "The Vexari believe that nothing happens without purpose. Perhaps this was always meant to be." Rain wasn't sure he believed in destiny, but lying there with Jira, he could almost be convinced. For the first time since Operation Midnight Sun, he felt something like peace. It wouldn't last. The next morning, as dawn broke over the ruins, the perimeter alarm Rain had installed months ago blared to life. He bolted upright, instantly alert, reaching for the pulse pistol he kept beside the bed. "What is it?" Jira asked, fear edging her voice. "Someone's approaching," Rain said, moving to the small surveillance system he'd rigged from salvage parts. The grainy display showed 6 figures moving methodically through the ruins, their uniforms unmistakable even on the poor quality screen. "Earth Alliance Reconnaissance Team," he muttered, a cold weight settling in his stomach. Jira appeared at his side, clutching a blanket around her bare shoulders. Her eyes widened as she recognized the uniforms. "Why are they here?" Rain shook his head, watching the disciplined movements of the soldiers. "I don't know, but they'll reach us within the hour." He turned to her, seeing the fear return to her eyes, the same fear he'd worked so hard to banish. In that moment, Rain knew he faced a choice that would define whatever future lay ahead. "Stay here," Rain instructed, pressing his backup pulse pistol into Jira's hands. "If anyone but me tries to enter, use this." Her fingers closed around the weapon, but her eyes remained fixed on his face. "What are you going to do?" "Talk to them. Find out why they're here." Rain pulled on his worn combat jacket, the one without military insignia. "I'll say I'm a deserter who's been living alone." "They won't believe you," Jira said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Your dwelling has 2 water cups, 2 sleeping mats." Rain cursed under his breath. She was right. The signs of her presence were subtle but unmistakable to trained eyes. "Then I'll meet them before they reach the shelter. Buy you time to hide anything that suggests you're here." Jira caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Rain, be careful. If they discover what we are to each other..." He pulled her close, cutting off her words with a fierce kiss. "I'll come back," he promised against her lips. "Whatever happens, I'll come back." With a final squeeze of her hand, Rain slipped outside, securing the door behind him. The morning air was cool against his face as he moved through the ruins with practiced stealth, circling to approach the reconnaissance team from an angle that wouldn't reveal his dwelling's location. He spotted them easily, 6 figures in Earth Alliance uniforms moving with military precision through the debris field. Rain studied their formation, noting the confident stride of the point man. Something about that walk was hauntingly familiar. Rain's blood ran cold as recognition hit him. Major Thorne, his former commanding officer. Of all the people Earth could have sent, they dispatched the one man who knew Rain better than anyone. The one man he couldn't hope to fool. For a moment, Rain considered retreating, grabbing Jira and fleeing deeper into the ruins. But that would only delay the inevitable. Better to control the encounter, to shape the narrative. Taking a deep breath, Rain stepped out from behind a collapsed wall, hands raised to shoulder height. "That's far enough," he called. The team reacted instantly, weapons swinging toward him with practiced efficiency. Major Thorne raised a closed fist, halting his squad's advance. "Identify yourself," Thorne barked, his voice carrying easily across the rubble-strewn ground. "You know damn well who I am, Thorne," Rain replied, keeping his hands visible. The Major lowered his weapon slightly, squinting against the morning sun. "Rain? Rain Donovan?" "In the flesh." Thorne signaled his team to lower their weapons, then approached alone, stopping a cautious distance away. The years had etched new lines around his eyes, but otherwise, he looked unchanged. The same square jaw, the same calculating gaze. 3 years, Thorne said, shaking his head. 3 years since you disappeared after Operation Midnight Sun. The official record lists you as KIA. Convenient for everyone, Rain replied. Not for those who mourned you. Something like genuine emotion flickered across Thorne's face. Why are you here, Donovan? Of all the places in the galaxy to disappear, why return to this hellhole? Rain had prepared for this question, but the truth felt safer than any lie he could concoct. Penance, maybe, or just nowhere else to go. Thorne studied him for a long moment. You've been living here, alone. The question hung in the air, weighted with suspicion. Rain met his former commander's gaze steadily. What brings Earth Alliance back to Nix 9, Major? Nothing here but ghosts. That's classified, Thorne replied automatically, then seemed to reconsider. Actually, you might want to hear this. We're on a diplomatic mission. Diplomatic? Rain couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. With whom? This place is abandoned. Not entirely. Thorne gestured for his team to approach. New evidence has emerged about Operation Midnight Sun. Intelligence that suggests we were misled. Rain's heart hammered against his ribs. Misled how? The Vexari facility wasn't developing bioweapons. It was researching a cure for the Crimson Plague, just as they claimed. Thorne's expression hardened. Our intelligence was falsified by a third party, the Krell Dominion. They wanted humans and Vexari at each other's throats while they expanded into their disputed territories. The revelation hit Rain like a physical blow. Everything Jira had told him was true. The operation that had haunted him for years, that had driven him to this self-imposed exile, had been based on a lie. Earth Alliance is attempting to establish contact with any remaining Vexari, Thorne continued, to make amends if possible. When our scanners detected human life signs in the ruins, we hoped it might be survivors from the original operation who could help us locate the Vexari. Rain's mind raced. This changed everything, or could if Thorne was telling the truth. But years of military training had taught him caution. How do I know this isn't some kind of trap? He asked. Thorne sighed, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a small holographic projector. He activated it, and the image of an Earth Alliance general appeared, delivering a formal apology to the Vexari High Council. The date stamp showed it was broadcast just 2 weeks earlier. It's real, Donovan, Thorne said as the message concluded. We're here to make things right. Rain made his decision. I may be able to help you establish contact with the Vexari, he said carefully. But first, I need your word, as an officer and a human, that no harm will come to any Vexari we find. Thorne's eyes narrowed slightly. You know where survivors are hiding? Your word, Major. After a moment's hesitation, Thorne nodded. You have it. This mission is about reconciliation, not retribution. Rain took a deep breath. Then there's someone you need to meet. The walk back to Rain's dwelling stretched longer than the actual distance. Each step felt weighted with consequence as he led Major Thorne through the ruins, leaving the rest of the reconnaissance team to establish a secure perimeter. Rain's mind churned with questions, doubts, and a desperate hope that this unexpected development might offer Jira, and perhaps himself, a chance at redemption. You've changed, Donovan, Thorne observed, breaking the tense silence between them. Rain glanced sideways at his former commander. 3 years in this wasteland will do that to a man. It's more than that. Thorne's voice held no judgment, only curiosity. You were always a good soldier. Followed orders without question. Now you're different. Maybe I learned to question, Rain replied as they approached his makeshift home. He paused at the entrance, suddenly uncertain. What if Jira had fled? What if she'd decided he'd betrayed her? The thought sent a cold spike through his chest. Before we go in, Rain said, turning to face Thorne, there's something you should know. The Vexari survivor. She's important to me. Understanding dawned in Thorne's eyes. How important? Rain met his gaze steadily. Very. Thorne absorbed this with a slight nod. Understood. Taking a deep breath, Rain opened the door. Jira, it's me. I've brought someone who wants to talk. For a heart-stopping moment, there was only silence. Then Jira emerged from the shadows of the back room, still clutching the pulse pistol Rain had given her. She changed into the cleanest clothes they had, a simple tunic and pants that Rain had traded for months ago. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the dim light, her indigo eyes wary as they fixed on Thorn. "This is Major Thorn," Rain said gently. "He's with Earth Alliance. They're here on a diplomatic mission." Jira's gaze flicked between Rain and Thorn. "Diplomatic," she repeated, the word carrying a weight of disbelief. Thorn stepped forward, stopping when Jira tensed. With deliberate movements, he removed his sidearm and placed it on the table between them. "On behalf of Earth Alliance," he said formally, "I extend our deepest apologies for the tragedy of Operation Midnight Sun. We were deceived, but that doesn't excuse our actions or the suffering they caused." Jira's expression remained guarded. "Why are you really here, Major?" "Two reasons," Thorn replied honestly. "First, to make amends. Second," he hesitated, glancing at Rain. "We need your help." "My help?" Jira lowered the pistol slightly. "What could I possibly offer Earth Alliance?" "Not just you, all surviving Vexari." Thorn activated his wrist communicator, projecting a holographic image of a human colony world. Red markers pulsed across its surface. "This is Helios Prime 3 weeks ago, the beginning of an outbreak we're calling the Ashen Plague. It attacks the respiratory system, turns the lungs to ash. Death rate is nearly 80%. Rain studied the projection with growing dread. "How many colonies are affected?" 7 so far, spreading fast. Thorn's face was grim as he switched to another image. Medical scans showing devastated lung tissue. "Our scientists have determined it's engineered, not natural. Krell bioweapon, we believe." "The Krell again," Rain muttered. "Our intelligence suggests the Vexari encountered a similar pathogen centuries ago during their early conflicts with the Krell." Thorn continued, focusing on Jira. "And that you developed an effective treatment." Jira's eyes widened in recognition. "The Grey Death. It ravaged our outer colonies during the first Krell War." "Yes," Thorn confirmed eagerly. "Our records indicate your people found a cure, but the formula was lost when your medical archives on Vexar Prime were destroyed in the Second Krell War." "Not lost," Jira said softly. "Protected. The knowledge was preserved in living memory, passed from healer to apprentice for generations." Hope flickered across Thorn's face. "Then you know it." "I'm not a healer," Jira admitted. "Yeah, but I know where to find those who are. There's a hidden sanctuary in the deep ruins, a place where Vexari healers continued their work even after the human attack." Rain stared at her in shock. "You never told me about this." "It wasn't my secret to share," Jira replied, meeting his gaze. "But now," she turned back to Thorn, "if what you say is true, if humans truly seek reconciliation, perhaps it's time for secrets to end." Thorn nodded solemnly. "Earth Alliance is prepared to offer reparations, technology exchange, territorial concessions, whatever is necessary to make amends and secure Vexari assistance." "I'll need to speak with the Sanctuary Elders," Jira said after a moment's consideration. "They must decide whether to trust humans again." "Of course," Thorn agreed. "When can we—" "Not we," Jira interrupted. "Only Rain can accompany me. The Sanctuary has remained hidden for a reason." Thorn frowned but nodded reluctantly. "How long will it take?" 2 days' journey through the deep ruins, Jira said. "Dangerous territory. The old defense systems are still active in some sectors." "We'll leave at first light," Rain decided, looking to Jira for confirmation. She nodded, her expression softening as their eyes met. Thorn cleared his throat. "I'll inform my team. We'll maintain position here and await your return." He retrieved his sidearm and moved toward the door, then paused. "Donovan, thank you for this chance." After Thorn departed, silence settled between Rain and Jira. The weight of what lay ahead pressed on them both. "You trust him?" Jira asked finally. "Thorn is many things, but he's not a liar," Rain replied. "If he says Earth wants reconciliation, it's true." Jira moved closer, her fingers finding his. "And you? Are you ready to return to your people?" The question carried layers of meaning. Rain pulled her gently into his arms, breathing in her familiar scent. "My place is with you now," he whispered against her smooth head. "Whatever comes next." She tilted her face up to his, indigo eyes searching. "The Sanctuary Elders may not welcome a human, even one who saved a Vexari life. Then I'll just have to charm them, Rain said with a half-smile. I managed to charm you, didn't I? Jira's lips curved upward. You did considerably more than charm me, Rain Donovan. The memory of their night together sent heat coursing through him. He lowered his mouth to hers, their kiss deepening with the knowledge that they stood at a crossroads, one that could lead to healing for both their peoples or to greater heartbreak. That night they came together again with increased urgency, as if trying to forge a connection strong enough to withstand whatever challenges the coming days would bring. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined in the darkness, Rain realized that what had begun as simple comfort between two lonely souls had transformed into something he'd never expected to find in the ruins of Nix 9. Love. The journey into the deep ruins of Nix 9 tested even Rain's military-honed endurance. They traveled through collapsed tunnels, scaled crumbling structures, and navigated maze-like corridors where the air hung thick with dust and forgotten memories. Jira moved with surprising confidence, her bare feet finding purchase on surfaces Rain would have deemed treacherous. She'd refused his offer of boots, explaining that Vexari feet contained sensitive receptors that helped them navigate by feeling vibrations in the ground, an evolutionary advantage on their geologically unstable homeworld. How much farther? Rain asked as they paused to rest in what appeared to have been a grand atrium, now open to the sky where the dome had collapsed. We're close, Jira replied, her indigo eyes scanning the horizon. See that spire? The entrance is beneath it. Rain followed her gaze to a twisted metal structure that resembled a broken finger, pointing accusingly at the sky. That doesn't look very hospitable. That's the point, Jira said with a small smile. The best sanctuaries don't advertise themselves. As they approached the spire, Rain noticed subtle changes in their surroundings. The debris became less random, the pathways clearer. Someone was maintaining this area, disguising the maintenance to look like natural settling. Stop here, Jira instructed when they reached the base of the spire. She knelt and pressed her palm against what appeared to be solid ground. A section of the surface shimmered and disappeared, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Holographic camouflage, Rain murmured, impressed. I thought the Vexari lost most of their advanced tech in the attack. We preserved what mattered most, Jira replied, leading him down the stairs. The passage ended at a blank wall. Jira placed her palm against it and spoke in the musical Vexari language. The wall dissolved, revealing a vast chamber that stole Rain's breath. Unlike the ruined city above, the sanctuary was pristine, a marvel of curved architecture and soft, ambient lighting. Transparent tubes carried liquids of various colors throughout the space. Vexari moved purposefully among workstations filled with technology that made Earth Alliance equipment look primitive by comparison. Welcome to Sanctuary, Jira said softly. Their arrival didn't go unnoticed. Activity ceased as dozens of indigo eyes turned toward them, specifically toward Rain. The silence was heavy with tension until an elderly Vexari approached. His blue skin faded to a pale azure with age. Jira, he greeted, his voice carrying the same melodic quality as hers. You returned to us, with a human. The last word wasn't spoken with hostility, but with unmistakable caution. Elder Pax, Jira bowed respectfully. This is Rain Donovan, formerly of Earth Alliance Special Forces. He saved my life. The elder studied Rain with ancient eyes that seemed to see through flesh to bone, through bone to soul. The one who spared you does not erase the many who did not spare others. I understand your caution, Rain said, meeting the elder's gaze. I was part of Operation Midnight Sun. I believed the lies we were told, and I've lived with that guilt every day since. Yet here you stand in the heart of what remains of our civilization, Elder Pax observed. Why have you brought him here, Jira? Earth Alliance seeks reconciliation, Jira explained. They need our help. The Krell have unleashed the Grey Death on human colonies. Murmurs spread through the gathered Vexari. Elder Pax's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Concern, perhaps. The council must convene, he announced. Until then, the human will remain under guard. He stays with me, Jira said firmly, surprising Rain with her boldness. I vouch for him with my life. The elder considered this, then nodded once. So be it. But neither of you may enter the inner sanctum until the council decides. As Elder Pax departed, Other Vexari gradually resumed their activities, though many cast curious glances toward Rain. Jira led him to a small alcove where they could speak privately. "That went better than expected," Rain murmured. "Don't be deceived by Pax's calm," Jira warned. "The Council is deeply divided. Some, like Pax, believe isolation is our only protection. Others see value in renewed contact with other species." "And where do you stand?" Jira's fingers found his, intertwining. "I once believed as Pax does. Then I met you." The simple statement carried such weight that Rain felt momentarily humbled. He raised their joined hands and pressed his lips to her knuckles. "I'll try not to disappoint." A young Vexari approached, interrupting the moment. "The Council has prepared quarters for you," he said, eyeing their joined hands with poorly concealed curiosity. Their assigned room was small but comfortable, with a single sleeping platform that confirmed the Vexari were aware of their relationship. After the messenger departed, Rain explored the space while Jira accessed a wall terminal. "This technology, it's far beyond anything Earth Alliance has," Rain observed, examining a device that appeared to purify the air around it. "The sanctuary was established centuries ago as a repository for our most advanced knowledge," Jira explained. "When the human attack came, the elders activated emergency protocols. The most valuable technologies and information were moved deeper underground." "Including weapons?" Rain asked carefully. Jira turned from the terminal. "Defensive systems, yes. The Vexari have never been conquerors, Rain, but we protect what's ours." "Fair enough." He moved closer, drawn to her as always. "So we wait for the Council?" "They'll deliberate through the night," Jira said, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. "We have time." The invitation in her touch was unmistakable. Rain gathered her in his arms, their bodies fitting together with the familiar perfection that still amazed him. In the heart of the Vexari sanctuary, surrounded by those who had every reason to hate him, Rain found himself falling even deeper for the woman who had bridged two worlds. Later, as they lay entwined on the sleeping platform, Jira traced patterns on his chest, Vexari symbols he couldn't read. "What are you writing?" he asked, capturing her hand and bringing it to his lips. "An old Vexari blessing," she replied. "For protection in uncertain times." "Do you think we'll need it?" Jira's expression grew serious. "The Council's decision won't be unanimous. Whatever they decide, there will be resistance." "From which side?" "Both," she admitted. "There are humans who won't accept Vexari as equals, just as there are Vexari who will never trust humans." Rain pulled her closer. "Then we'll just have to prove them all wrong, won't we?" Her smile returned, warming him from within. "Your species' confidence never ceases to amaze me. Faced with impossible odds, humans simply decide to overcome them." "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "An observation," Jira replied, her fingers resuming their patterns on his skin. "And perhaps the reason why, despite everything, our peoples might find a way forward together." Rain woke to the sound of alarms, a pulsing melodic tone unlike the harsh klaxons used by Earth Alliance, but unmistakably a warning. Beside him, Jira was already sitting up, her expression tense as she pressed her palm against a panel that had appeared in the wall. "What's happening?" Rain asked, reaching for his clothes. "Orbital sensors have detected ships entering the system," Jira replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. 3 vessels, non-Vexari, non-human configuration." Rain pulled on his pants and moved to look over her shoulder. The display showed tactical data in Vexari script he couldn't read, but the ship silhouettes were familiar enough. "Krell warship," he muttered, "heavy cruiser class." Jira glanced at him. "You recognize them?" "I fought them before." Those ventral protrusions house their main weapons arrays. Rain studied the projected course. "They're heading directly for Nix 9. This isn't a random patrol. They know something's here." The door to their quarters slid open, revealing Elder Pax accompanied by 2 younger Vexari in what appeared to be military garb. "The council session is suspended," Pax announced without preamble. "We have more pressing concerns." "The Krell found us," Jira said, rising to her feet. "Perhaps," Pax replied, his ancient eyes shifting to Rain. "Or perhaps they followed our human visitor." Rain bristled at the implication. "If I'd led them here, they would have attacked days ago. They're responding to something recent. The Earth Alliance team, Jira suggested. Their ship's emissions could have been detected. Regardless of how they found us, they are here, Pax said grimly. The Council has activated our defensive protocols, but our systems were designed for concealment, not open warfare. Rain finished dressing, military instincts kicking in. What about the Earth Alliance team on the surface? They need to be warned. Communications to the surface have been blocked, one of the military Vixari reported. The Krell are using wide-spectrum jammers. Then I need to go back, Rain decided. Warn them in person. Impossible, Pax said. We've sealed the sanctuary. No one leaves until the threat passes. And if it doesn't pass, Rain challenged, if the Krell land troops and find the entrance, you'll have a ground war on your doorstep. Pax's expression remained impassive, but Rain could see the calculation in his eyes. What do you propose, human? Let me contact the Earth Alliance team. Together with your security forces, we can establish a defensive perimeter on the surface. Keep the Krell away from the sanctuary entrance. You would fight alongside Vexari? Pax asked, skepticism evident. Against your own interests? Against the Krell? Absolutely, Rain's voice hardened. They manipulated both our peoples into conflict. They're spreading plagues through human space. They're the common enemy here. Jira stepped forward. Elder, Rain is right. This is an opportunity to demonstrate that cooperation between our species is possible. Necessary even. Pax considered this, then turned to the military Vixari. Commander Trell, what is your assessment? The commander straightened. Our defense systems can repel a limited ground assault, but sustained combat would drain our power reserves. Human assistance would be tactically advantageous. Very well, Pax conceded. Commander Trell will coordinate with you, human, but understand this. The sanctuary's location remains our most closely guarded secret. If it appears the Krell will overwhelm our defenses, we will collapse the entrance tunnels. Anyone on the surface will be cut off. Understood, Rain nodded. I need to gather my equipment and contact Major Thorn. I'm coming with you, Jira stated, her tone brooking no argument. Pax frowned. Jira, your knowledge of our medical archives is useless if the Krell breach the sanctuary, she interrupted. I can serve as liaison between Rain and Commander Trell. My translator training makes me uniquely qualified. The elder studied her for a long moment, then inclined his head slightly. So be it. Commander Trell, prepare your team. You depart in 30 minutes. As Pax and the commander left to make preparations, Rain turned to Jira. You don't have to do this. You'd be safer here. Safety isn't my priority, Jira replied, touching his face gently. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed playing the hero. Rain caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. I'm not the hero type. No? Her lips curved into a smile. The man who rescued a barefoot alien girl from the ruins, who's now volunteering to face Krell warriors to protect people who once considered him an enemy. That sounds rather heroic to me. Before Rain could respond, a Vexari technician arrived with equipment, including a sleek rifle of unfamiliar design. Pulse disruptor, Jira explained as Rain examined it. More effective against Krell armor than your Earth Alliance weapons. Rain tested the weapon's weight and balance, impressed by its ergonomics despite being designed for Vexari hands. Nice upgrade. They joined Commander Trell and a squad of 12 Vexari fighters at the sanctuary's main entrance. The commander briefed them on the situation. Krell dropships had been detected entering atmosphere, projected to land within 5 kilometers of their position. We'll exit through the emergency tunnel, Trell explained, indicating a narrow passage. It will bring us out 2 kilometers from your Earth Alliance position, human. Rain, he corrected. My name is Rain. The commander nodded stiffly. Rain, then. Your task is to coordinate with your people while we establish a defensive perimeter around the spire. As they prepared to depart, Jira pulled Rain aside. There's something you should know, she said quietly. The council reached a preliminary decision before the alarm sounded. Rain's heart quickened. And they agreed to provide the cure for the Ashen Plague, Jira said, her indigo eyes bright with emotion. Elder Pax was outvoted. The majority believes it's time for Vexari and humans to move beyond the past. Relief washed through Rain. That's incredible news. It is, Jira agreed. But first, we need to ensure there's a future for both our peoples. Rain nodded, determination settling over him like armor. Then let's make sure these Krell bastards don't ruin our fresh start. As they moved through the emergency tunnel, Rain felt a curious sense of rightness. 3 years ago, he'd participated in an operation based on lies that had devastated the Vexari. Now he had a chance at redemption, fighting alongside them against a true enemy. And at his side was Jira, the woman who had shown him that connection could be found in the most unlikely places, that healing was possible even after the deepest wounds. Whatever happened on the surface, Rain knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. The ruins of Nix 9 erupted into chaos as Krell dropships descended through the atmosphere, their engines leaving trails of sickly green vapor. Rain led the combined human-Vexari force toward the Earth Alliance position, moving swiftly through the rubble-strewn landscape. Major Thorn's surprise at seeing Rain emerge from the ruins with a squad of Vexari warriors quickly gave way to tactical pragmatism. Within minutes, they had established a joint command post in the remains of what had once been a civic building. 3 Krell cruisers in orbit, at least 4 drop ships on the surface, Thorn reported, studying the tactical display. They're establishing a perimeter around the ruins. They're searching for something, Commander Trell observed. Most likely the sanctuary. Or us, Thorn suggested. Earth Alliance has been hitting Krell supply lines hard since we discovered their involvement in Operation Midnight Sun. Rain studied the Krell deployment pattern. They're spreading too thin. If we concentrate our forces here and here, he indicated 2 positions on the map, we can punch through their line and flank their command position. Trell nodded appreciatively. An aggressive strategy, the Krell won't expect it. Humans specialize in the unexpected, Jira said with a hint of pride that warmed Rain's heart. They moved out in mixed teams, human tactical experience, complementing Vexari technology in ways that quickly proved devastatingly effective. Rain led the primary strike force, with Jira serving as communications liaison between the human and Vexari elements. The first engagement came at the edge of a collapsed market square. Krell soldiers, reptilian beings encased in chitinous armor, moved in tight formation, their energy weapons sweeping the ruins. "Hold," Rain whispered into his comm. "Wait for them to pass the fountain." When the Krell patrol reached the designated position, Rain gave the signal. Synchronized pulse fire from concealed positions dropped half of the patrol before they could react. The remaining Krell scattered for cover, only to be picked off by precise shots from Thorn's snipers. "Clean and efficient," Trell commented as they moved forward. "Perhaps there is something to be said for human tactics after all." "Just wait," Rain replied with a grim smile. "We're just getting started." Through 3 more engagements, the pattern held. Human unpredictability and adaptability paired with superior Vexari technology created a force greater than the sum of its parts. The Krell, accustomed to fighting each species separately, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. As they approached the Krell command post, a fortified position established around one of their dropships, Rain caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. A Krell commander emerged from the ship, distinctive by the ornate markings on its armor and the unusual crest on its helmet. "That's Verkar," Rain breathed, recognition hitting him like a physical blow. "You know him?" Jira asked, crouching beside him. "I've seen intelligence briefings. He's high in the Krell military hierarchy." Rain's eyes narrowed. "And according to files Thorn showed me, he was the one who provided the falsified intelligence about the Vexari bioweapon facility." Jira's indigo eyes widened. "The architect of Operation Midnight Sun?" "The very same," Rain confirmed. "And now he's here, personally leading a mission to find the sanctuary." A plan formed in Rain's mind. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but with the potential to end this conflict decisively. He outlined it quickly to Thorn and Trell, who exchanged concerned glances. "It's too risky," Thorn argued. "We should stick with our original strategy." "The original strategy would cost too many lives on both sides," Rain countered. "This way, we have a chance to cut off the head of the snake." "I agree with Rain," Trell said, surprising everyone. The Krell respect strength and direct confrontation. This plan, while dangerous, speaks their language. Preparations were made quickly. Rain and Jyra would approach under the pretense of surrender, drawing out Verkar, while Thorn and Trell's forces moved into position for the real attack. "You don't have to do this," Rain told Jyra as they prepared. "It's my plan. I should go alone." "We started this journey together," she replied, checking her concealed weapon. "We'll finish it together." They approached the Krell position with hands raised, weapons hidden beneath their outer garments. As expected, they were quickly surrounded and escorted to Verkar. The Krell commander was even more imposing up close. Nearly 7 feet tall with armor that seemed to pulse with internal energy. His reptilian face regarded them with cold calculation. "A human and a Vexari working together," he hissed, his translator rendering his speech into accented standard. "How unexpected." "We've come to negotiate," Rain said, keeping his voice steady. "On behalf of both our peoples." "Negotiate?" Verkar's laugh was like stones grinding together. "The Krell do not negotiate with lesser species." "Lesser?" Rain allowed a hint of contempt to enter his voice. "You couldn't defeat either of our peoples directly, so you tricked us into fighting each other. Those aren't the tactics of a superior species. They're the tactics of a coward." The Krell commander's posture stiffened with rage. "You dare!" "We dare," Jyra interrupted, her melodic voice carrying unexpected authority. "You manipulated our peoples into conflict. You spread plagues through human space. And now you come here, seeking to destroy what remains of Vexari knowledge." "Knowledge that rightfully belongs to the Krell," Verkar snarled. "The Vexari have hoarded medical secrets for millennia." "Secrets we would have shared had you asked instead of attacked," Jyra replied. Rain moved slightly, positioning himself for what would come next. "It doesn't have to end in more bloodshed. The Vexari Council has already agreed to share the cure for the Grey Death, with humans and potentially with the Krell." This caught Verkar off guard. "You lie. The Vexari would never." "Times change," Jyra said simply. "Perhaps it's time for the Krell to change as well." For a moment, Rain thought their gambit might actually work, that diplomacy might prevail where violence had failed. Then Verkar's hand moved to his weapon. "Enough deception. You will take us to the Vexari Sanctuary, or?" Rain moved with the lightning reflexes that had made him legendary in special forces, drawing his concealed pulse disruptor and firing in one fluid motion. Simultaneously, the coordinated attack began. Precision fire from hidden positions striking the Krell forces with devastating effect. In the chaos, Verkar lunged for Jyra. Rain threw himself between them, taking a glancing blow from the Krell commander's energy blade across his chest. Pain seared through him, but adrenaline kept him moving. He fired again, catching Verkar in a vulnerable joint of his armor. The Krell commander staggered but didn't fall. With surprising speed, he struck again, this time catching Rain squarely. Rain felt the burning pain spread through his torso as he collapsed. Through dimming vision, he saw Jyra raise her weapon and fire repeatedly, driving Verkar back. The last thing Rain heard before consciousness fled was Thorn's voice shouting orders as the human Vexari forces closed in. Rain awoke to the soft hum of Vexari medical equipment and the gentle pressure of Jyra's hand in his. He was lying in a recovery chamber deep within the sanctuary, surrounded by technology he couldn't begin to comprehend. "Welcome back," Jyra said softly, her indigo eyes bright with unshed tears. "You had us worried." Rain tried to speak, found his throat dry. Jyra helped him sip water from a curved vessel. "Verkar," he managed finally. "Dead," she replied, "along with most of his command staff." The remaining Krell surrendered when their ships in orbit were disabled by a joint Earth Vexari fleet. Rain blinked in surprise. "Earth sent ships?" "Major Thorn had called for reinforcements before the attack," Jyra explained. "They arrived just in time to prevent the Krell cruisers from bombarding the surface." She helped him sit up, supporting him as he adjusted to the movement. "The Council has formalized the agreement to share the cure. Earth Alliance medical ships are already en route to the affected colonies." "And us?" Rain asked, meeting her gaze. "What happens to us now?" Jyra's smile was radiant. "The Council has appointed me as official liaison to Earth Alliance. And you, as the hero who helped save the sanctuary, have been granted the unprecedented honor of permanent residence among the Vexari if you want it. Rain pulled her closer, ignoring the twinge of pain from his healing wound. The only thing I want is to be wherever you are. That can be arranged, she murmured against his lips. 6 months later, Rain stood on a balcony overlooking the newly established Joint Earth Vexari settlement that had risen from the ruins of Nix-9. The city, now renamed Aurora, symbolized the new alliance between the two species, an alliance that was already turning the tide against the Krell across multiple sectors. Jira joined him, her bare feet silent on the polished floor. She wore a simple blue dress that complemented her skin, and around her neck hung a pendant Rain had given her, crafted from a fragment of the spire that had once concealed the sanctuary entrance. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked, slipping her arm around his waist. "Just appreciating how much can change in a short time," he replied, pulling her close. "From ruins to this, from enemies to allies, from loneliness to love," Jira added softly. Rain smiled, remembering their first meeting, her trembling form among the debris, barefoot and afraid. The way she had broken down in that first bath, overwhelmed by simple kindness. How far they had both come since then. "The Vexari have a saying," Jira continued. "What is broken can be rebuilt stronger at the seams." "I think our peoples are proving that true." "Humans have a similar saying," Rain replied. "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." Jira laughed, the sound like music. "So direct, so human. That's why I love you." As the twin suns set over Aurora, painting the new city in hues of gold and amber, Rain reflected on the strange path that had led him here. He had come to Nix-9 seeking solitude and penance, but had found instead connection and purpose. And in the arms of a blue-skinned woman with indigo eyes, he had found something he'd never expected, a future worth fighting for.